The orc girl's fingers had just closed around the heavy woolen coat hanging on the fence post when Marcus Donnelly's voice cut through the frigid pre-dawn air like a blade. "You planning to ask for that, or just hoping I wouldn't notice?" She froze, her green fingers clutching the dark fabric, her breath misting in clouds before her face. For a heartbeat, she considered running, but the snow lay deep across the fields and her legs already trembled from hunger and cold. Slowly, she turned to face the human man standing in the doorway of his small homestead cabin, lamplight spilling golden around his silhouette. "I did not think anyone was awake," she said, her voice rough, keeping her chin raised despite the shame burning in her chest. Her tusks caught the lamplight as she spoke, small and curved against her lower lip. Marcus stepped out onto the porch, pulling his own threadbare shirt tighter against the wind. He was perhaps 30 winters old, with dark hair that fell past his collar and the weathered face of someone who worked the land. His eyes, she noticed, were neither cruel nor afraid. They simply assessed her with quiet attention. "You thought right, usually," he said. "But the mare's foaling and I have been checking on her through the night. You look half frozen." Mira Stonebrook, though he did not know her name, yet stood there in clothes that were little more than rags, her muscular frame shivering beneath torn leather and thin cloth. Her dark hair hung in a matted braid over one shoulder, and her green skin had taken on a grayish cast from the cold. She was young, perhaps 20 summers, with the strong features of her people and eyes that held both defiance and desperation. "I will return it," she said, though they both knew that was likely a lie, "when I reach the next town." Marcus studied her for a long moment, then shook his head. "Keep it. You need it more than me." She blinked, certain she had misheard. "What? The coat, keep it." He gestured toward his cabin. "I have another inside. That one was my father's, and he would not have wanted anyone to freeze when there was warmth to be had." He paused, then added, "There is hot porridge on the stove too if you are hungry." Mira stared at him as if he had spoken in some foreign tongue. In her 20 years, no human had ever offered her kindness without expecting something in return. More often they threw stones or curses, or simply turned away as if she did not exist. Her clan had cast her out 3 weeks ago for defending a human child from a raiding party, and since then she had survived on scraps and what little she could steal without being caught. "Why?" The word came out harder than she intended, sharp with suspicion. Marcus leaned against the porch railing, seemingly unbothered by the cold despite his thin shirt. "Because it is winter and you are freezing. Does there need to be another reason? I am an orc, I noticed. Your people hate mine." "Some do," he agreed. "But that seems like a poor reason to let someone die of cold when I have a perfectly good coat going unused." He straightened. "The offer of food stands as well, though I will not force you. But if you are going to take that coat, you might as well get warm enough to actually benefit from it." Mira's stomach chose that moment to growl audibly, betraying her. She had not eaten anything substantial in 4 days. Surviving on pine nuts and half-frozen berries, she had managed to scavenge from the winter woods. Pride warred with pragmatism, and finally she gave a short, stiff nod. "I will eat, then I will leave." "Fair enough." Marcus turned and walked back into the cabin, leaving the door open behind him. After a moment's hesitation, Mira followed, still clutching the coat against her chest like a shield. The interior was simple but well kept. A single large room with a stone fireplace, a bed in one corner, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, and shelves lined with tools and supplies. The warmth hit her like a physical force, and she swayed slightly on her feet. Marcus gestured to one of the chairs and moved to the pot hanging over the fire. "Sit before you fall down," he said without looking at her. "How long have you been out in this weather?" She lowered herself carefully into the chair, watching him with the wariness of a wild animal. Some days. I lost count. He ladled thick porridge into a wooden bowl and set it before her along with a spoon. The steam rising from it smelled of oats and honey and something else she could not identify. She wanted to fall on it like a starving wolf, but forced herself to eat slowly, taking small bites while maintaining her careful observation of the human. Marcus poured himself a cup of something hot from a different pot and sat across from her, cradling it between his hands. He did not stare at her tusks or her green skin. He simply drank his tea and waited. "Why are you out here alone?" she asked finally, when the silence had stretched long enough to become uncomfortable. "Most humans cluster in their villages. Most orcs travel in clans," he countered. "Yet here you are, alone in the dead of winter." She said nothing, focusing on her porridge. Marcus sighed. "I am a veteran, spent 10 years fighting in the border wars. When I came home, I found I could not sleep easy with neighbors close by. Too many footsteps, too many voices. So I took my father's land grant and moved out here. I have my horse, my chickens, and enough land to farm in season. It suits me. You fought orcs. It was not a question." "I fought in a war," he corrected. "I killed orcs. Orcs killed humans. We all followed orders and bled the same color. When I left, I decided I was done with killing. Now I just want to work my land and be left alone." Mira scraped the last of the porridge from her bowl, feeling warmth spread through her body for the first time in weeks. "Your people would not approve of you helping me." "There are no my people for 20 miles in any direction. Out here there is just me, and I will make my own choices about who deserves help." He stood and retrieved a chunk of bread from a shelf, placing it before her. "Eat that too. You need your strength." She took the bread but studied him with narrowed eyes. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Eat your bread. The storm is getting worse. You can hear the wind picking up. You can sleep in the barn if you want shelter for the night. The mare will not mind the company and there is fresh hay. Otherwise, take the coat and the warmth you have gotten here and go with my blessing." Mira turned this over in her mind, searching for the trap, the hidden price. She found none in his plain, open expression. This human was either the most naive fool in the territory, or he genuinely meant what he said. She was not sure which possibility unsettled her more. "The barn," she said finally. "Just for tonight, then I will go." "Fair enough," Marcus said again, and something in his calm acceptance made her shoulders relax fractionally. "Finish your bread first. No sense rushing out into that wind." She ate slowly, savoring each bite while the storm howled outside. Marcus moved about the cabin, checking his supplies and tending to small tasks, giving her space. When she had finished, he led her through the brutal cold to a sturdy barn where a beautiful chestnut mare stood in a spacious stall, her sides heavy with foal. "Her name is Copper," Marcus said, running a hand along the horse's neck. "She is due any day now. There is hay in that corner, blankets on that hook. Help yourself to whatever you need. I will be back at dawn to check on her." He left before Mira could formulate a response, striding back through the snow toward his cabin. She stood in the barn's relative warmth, clutching the coat and trying to understand what had just happened. Finally, she spread hay in an empty stall, wrapped herself in the coat and one of the blankets and lay down in the sweet-smelling darkness. For the first time in weeks, she felt almost safe. She woke to the sound of Marcus's voice, low and soothing, speaking to Copper. Dawn light filtered through the gaps in the barn walls and Mira sat up quickly, disoriented. The human glanced at her and nodded in greeting. "Morning. Storm passed in the night but left a good 2 feet of fresh snow. You are welcome to stay until the roads are clearer." Mira pushed to her feet, brushing hay from her clothes. "I should not impose further." "You are not imposing. The mare seems calmer with you here. Horses can sense things. And frankly, I could use an extra pair of hands when she foals. Have you ever helped with a birthing? She had, actually. Her clan had kept wolves and great riding beasts. She knew the signs of labor, the complications that could arise. But admitting that felt like admitting she belonged here, even temporarily. Some, she said carefully. Then stay. At least until the foal comes safely. I will feed you and provide shelter. When the birth is done and the roads are passable, you can go wherever you were heading. Does that seem fair? It seemed more than fair. It seemed impossible. But Mira found herself nodding, her practical nature overriding her suspicion. She needed to regain her strength before traveling further, and if this strange human wanted to provide that opportunity, she would be a fool to refuse. I will stay. But I will work for my keep. I am not a beggar. Marcus smiled slightly. I am sure I can find work enough. Can you split wood? She could. She could also mend fences, tend animals, and do heavy labor that would tire most humans. Over the following days, she proved it. While Marcus went about his daily tasks, Mira threw herself into work with fierce determination, as if sheer effort could repay the debt she felt she owed. She split enough wood to last him a month. She reinforced the barn where winter had loosened the boards. She dug paths through the snow and checked his snares in the forest, bringing back rabbits and once a wild turkey. Marcus accepted her help with the same calm pragmatism. He seemed to approach everything, neither effusively grateful nor dismissive. In the evenings, he invited her into the cabin for meals. At first she refused, eating in the barn and telling herself she was maintaining proper boundaries. But the cold was bitter and the food he offered was hot, and by the third night she found herself sitting at his table again, watching him cook stew over the fire. You do not have to work so hard, he said, stirring the pot. I offered shelter freely. I am not a charity case, Mira replied, sharper than intended. I did not say you were. I am simply pointing out that you are recovering from near starvation and exposure. You should not push yourself into collapse. I am an orc. We are stronger than humans. So I have heard. You are also mortal, same as anyone. There is no shame in resting when you need to. She had no answer to that. In her clan, weakness was not tolerated. You worked until you dropped, and if you could not keep up, you were left behind. It was the way things had always been. But Marcus seemed to operate by different rules she did not quite understand yet. Why did you leave the fighting? She asked abruptly, changing the subject. Marcus was quiet for a moment, ladling stew into bowls. I saw too many good people die for reasons that made less sense the longer the war went on. I watched friends bleed out in mud while generals argued about territory lines. And one day I looked at the orc I was supposed to kill, just a boy, really, could not have been more than 16, and I realized I did not know why I was fighting anymore. So when my term ended, I left. That orc boy, did you kill him? No, I let him run. He looked terrified. So was I, if I am being honest. Marcus set a bowl before her. I think about him sometimes. Hope he made it home. Mira ate in silence, processing this. She had been taught that humans were cruel, that they killed her people for sport and glory. Marcus was forcing her to reconsider that simple truth, and it left her unsettled. My clan cast me out, she said finally, surprising herself with the admission. I stopped our warriors from killing a human child they found wandering near our territory. They said I was a traitor. That I had forgotten what I was. Marcus met her eyes. Did you forget? No, I just could not watch them hurt a child. He was only 5 or 6 summers. He was lost and crying, it seemed. She struggled for the word. Wrong. It was wrong, Marcus said firmly. And you did the right thing, even though it cost you everything. That takes courage. No one had ever called her courageous for that choice. The warmth of his words settled somewhere in her chest, unfamiliar and precious. As the days passed into a week, Mira found herself falling into the rhythm of the homestead. She woke before dawn to check on Copper, whose time was drawing near. She worked through the morning, taking on whatever tasks Marcus set or finding her own projects. They ate together at midday and again in the evening, and slowly, carefully, they began to talk. She learned that Marcus had lost his parents years ago, that he had a sister in a distant settlement he had not seen in 2 years. She learned he could carve beautiful figures from wood, that he sang old ballads while he worked, that he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and sometimes made her laugh despite herself. He learned that she had been born during the harsh winter, that her mother had died in childbirth and her father in battle when she was young. She had been raised by the clan's warriors, taught to fight and hunt and survive. She had never expected kindness from the world, only struggle, and Marcus's gentle steadiness confused her as much as it comforted her. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Marcus carved while Mira attempted to mend a shirt that had torn during her work. She was clumsy with the needle, her large fingers better suited to weapons than delicate tasks, and she cursed in Orcish when she pricked her finger for the 3rd time. "Here," Marcus said, setting down his carving. "Let me show you." He moved to sit beside her on the bench, taking the shirt and demonstrating a simpler stitch. His shoulder pressed against hers, warm and solid, and Mira found herself acutely aware of his presence, of the way his hands moved with practiced skill, of the faint scent of wood smoke and soap that clung to him. "You do not have to teach me your domestic skills," she said, trying to focus on the needle and not on the strange flutter in her stomach. "Everyone should know how to mend their own clothes. What will you do when you leave here and tear something?" The question hung between them. When she left, they had both been carefully avoiding that particular future, living day to day as if this arrangement might continue indefinitely. But of course it could not. Spring would come eventually, and Mira would need to move on, to find a place where she could build some kind of life. "I will manage," she said quietly. "I always do." Marcus handed the shirt back to her. "Try it now." "Smaller stitches, see," she tried, and this time managed several stitches without drawing blood. When she glanced up to show him, she found him already looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. His gray eyes held something soft, something that made her breath catch. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing. Just thinking that you are doing well, learning quickly." He moved back to his own seat, but the warmth of where he had been remained against her side. Mira bent over her mending, confused by the disappointment she felt at the increased distance between them. That night, lying in the barn wrapped in the coat he had given her, she admitted to herself what she had been trying to ignore. She was becoming attached to this place, to the rhythm of work and meals and quiet evenings, to Marcus himself, with his calm steadiness and unexpected kindness. It was dangerous, this attachment. Nothing good could come of it. She was an orc, he was human, and the world did not allow for such impossible things. But knowing this did not stop her heart from lifting when she saw him each morning, or from lingering over supper, or from finding excuses to stay near him during the day. Copper's labor began on a bitter cold night 2 weeks after Mira's arrival. She woke to the mare's distressed sounds and immediately knew. She was halfway to Marcus's cabin when his door opened and he emerged, already dressed. "I heard her," he said shortly. "Let us go." They worked through the long hours of the night, Mira's experience with animal births proving invaluable. The foaling was difficult. The foal was positioned wrong and had to be carefully turned. Mira's strong hands and long arms allowed her to reach where Marcus could not, and together they guided the new life into the world. When the foal finally slipped free, wet and gangly and perfect, Mira found tears on her face. She wiped them quickly, hoping Marcus had not noticed, but when she glanced at him, he was not looking at her. He was staring at the foal with an expression of pure wonder, and there were tears on his face too. "A colt," he said softly. "A healthy colt." Copper was already nosing her baby, nickering softly. The foal struggled to stand on shaky legs, and they both held their breath until he managed it, wobbling but upright. Marcus laughed, the sound bright with relief and joy, and without thinking Mira found herself laughing too. "We did it," she said, and was startled when Marcus grabbed her hand and squeezed. "We did. I could not have done this without you. Thank you." His hand was warm and calloused from work, and he held hers for a moment longer than necessary before releasing it. Mira felt the loss like a physical thing when he let go. They stayed in the barn until dawn, making sure both mare and foal were stable. By the time they returned to the cabin, exhausted and covered in barn smell, the sun was rising over the snow-covered fields in shades of pink and gold. Marcus made tea and they sat in companionable silence, too tired for conversation but content in each other's presence. "What will you name him?" Mira asked finally. Marcus considered. "Storm, since he was born during winter and because he fought like a storm to get here. It is a good name." "Strong." They drank their tea. Outside, the world was painted in winter light, beautiful and harsh and unforgiving. Inside, the fire crackled and warmth surrounded them. Mira realized with a sharp pang that she had not felt this peaceful since before her exile. Here, in this small cabin with this strange, kind human, she had found something she had not even known she was searching for. "Marcus," she said, then stopped, unsure how to continue. "Yes, thank you for everything. For the coat, for the shelter, for treating me like I am a person and not just an orc." He turned to look at her fully, his expression serious. "Mira, you have thanked me at least a dozen times. You do not need to thank me for basic decency. And you have more than repaid me with your work and your help with the foaling. We are even by any measure. I do not feel even. I feel like I owe you more than I can ever repay. You owe me nothing. But if you truly want to repay me, then stop working yourself to exhaustion and just stay. Stay because you want to, not because you feel obligated." The invitation hung between them, fragile and huge. "Stay. Not for a few more days, not until the road's cleared, just stay." "I cannot stay forever," she said, though her heart protested the words. "This is not my place." "Why not?" "Because you are an orc and I am human. That seems like a poor reason." "It is the reason the entire world would give. The world is not here. Out here there is just us and we seem to manage well enough." He hesitated, then added, "I would like you to stay. Not for the work, though you are certainly helpful, just because I enjoy your company. Because I have grown accustomed to having someone to share meals with. Because this cabin feels less lonely with you here." Mira's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to stay more than she had wanted anything in years. But wanting something and having it be possible were different things. What happens when spring comes and travelers pass through? What happens when your neighbors visit and find an orc living here? "I have no neighbors close enough to visit, and if travelers have a problem with my choices, they can keep moving." His voice was firm, brooking no argument. "I am not ashamed of you being here. You should not be either." She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that this fragile peace they had built could last. But she had spent her whole life learning that nothing good lasted, that the world would always find a way to take away anything precious. "Let me think about it," she said finally. Marcus nodded, though she saw disappointment flicker across his face. "Of course. Take all the time you need." But time, as it turned out, was not something they would have. 3 days later, as Mira was checking Marcus's snare lines in the forest, she heard horses approaching the homestead. Multiple horses, ridden hard. She froze, then moved silently through the trees until she could see the cabin. 5 men on horseback had surrounded the building. They were armed with swords and bows and wore the rough leathers of frontier militia. Mira's blood went cold when she recognized the type. Orc hunters, men who made their living tracking and killing her people for bounty. Marcus stood on his porch, arms crossed, blocking the door. His voice carried across the snow. "I have told you there is no orc here. I am alone. Now I would appreciate it if you left my property." "We tracked clear footprints from the barn to the forest," one of the hunters said. He was a large man with a scarred face and a cruel mouth. "Big footprints, orc-sized, and word in Milford is that you have been seen with a green skin. That true?" "What I do on my own land is my business, not when it involves harboring dangerous creatures." The hunter spat into the snow. "We have a duty to protect good folk from orc raids. If you are hiding one, you are complicit." "There have been no raids out here," Marcus said, his voice hard as iron. "The only danger I see is 5 armed men threatening a homesteader." Mira's mind raced. She could run deeper into the forest, disappear before they found her trail. Marcus would be safe if she left. But the thought of abandoning him, of running like a coward while he faced these men alone, made her sick with shame. The lead hunter dismounted. "We are searching your property. You can cooperate, or we can do this the hard way. You have no authority here. We have the authority of steel." The hunter's hand went to his sword hilt. "Now step aside." Mira made her decision. She stepped out from the tree line, walking toward the homestead with her head high and her hands open to show she carried no weapons. "I am here," she called. "I am the orc you seek." There is no need to threaten him. All 5 hunters turned to face her, and she saw Marcus's face go pale with fear, not for himself, but for her. "Mira, no," he started, but she shook her head. "It is all right." She stopped about 20 feet from the horses, close enough to speak clearly, but far enough to hopefully keep herself outside sword range. "I have been staying in his barn. He did not know I was here until recently." It was a lie, and a poor one, but she hoped it would absolve Marcus of guilt in their eyes. The lead hunter looked her up and down with an expression of disgust. "Been raiding his supplies, have you? Typical orc thievery." "I have stolen nothing. I worked for shelter." "Right. And I am sure he just let you stay out of the goodness of his heart." The hunter's tone dripped sarcasm. He turned to his men. "Bind it. There is a bounty for live ones if they are healthy enough." The hunters dismounted and began to advance on Mira. She stood very still, forcing herself not to react, not to fight. If she fought, they would have an excuse to kill her, and they might hurt Marcus in the process. She could survive captivity. She had survived worse, but Marcus had other ideas. He came off the porch in a rush, putting himself between Mira and the hunters. "Touch her, and I swear to all the gods I will make you regret it." The lead hunter stopped, studying Marcus with new interest. "Well now, got a fondness for the green skin, do you? That is perverse, even for a hermit." "That is none of your concern. She is under my protection. She has committed no crime, threatened no one. You have no just cause to take her. She is an orc. That is cause enough." "Not out here, it is not. This is my land, and I am telling you to leave. Now." The hunter's expression hardened. "You really want to die for an orc, old man?" "I am not dying. You are leaving, all of you." Marcus's voice was absolutely steady, and Mira suddenly remembered that this gentle farmer had been a soldier, that he knew violence even if he had turned away from it. "I will give you to the count of 10. For a long moment, no one moved. The tension stretched taut as a drawn bowstring. Mira could see the hunters calculating odds, weighing whether one farmer was worth the trouble. Finally, the lead hunter spat again and mounted his horse. "You are making a mistake protecting that thing. When it turns on you, and it will do not come crying to Milford for help. I will take my chances. Now get off my land." The hunters wheeled their horses and rode off, but Mira could see them looking back, memorizing the place. This was not over. They would return, probably with more men, and next time they would not bother with conversation first. As soon as the riders were out of sight, Marcus turned to her. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you?" "No, I am fine." "But Marcus, you should not have what? Let them take you." He ran a hand through his hair, agitated in a way she had never seen him. "Did you truly think I would just stand aside? They could have killed you. They could have killed you. Or worse, taken you to face whatever passes for justice in their minds." He was breathing hard, anger and fear warring in his face. "Do you really think I could have lived with myself if I let that happen? Better you live than throw your life away for me. You are not listening." He grabbed her shoulders, not roughly but firmly, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I do not want to live if it means abandoning people I care about to save my own skin. I did that in the war. I followed orders and looked away when my brothers in arms did terrible things, and it ate at me every day. I will not do it again, not ever, and certainly not with you." "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Why do you care so much? I am nothing to you. You are not nothing." His voice was fierce now, raw with emotion. "You are brave and strong and good. You have worked yourself to exhaustion trying to repay a kindness that was freely given. You laugh at my terrible jokes, and you saved Copper's foal, and you look at the sunrise like it is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You are not nothing, Mira. You are everything." The words hung in the cold air between them. Mira felt tears burning in her eyes, felt her careful walls crumbling. "I am an orc," she said, but there was no strength in the protest now. "I know. I do not care. The world cares. Then the world can go to hell." He pulled her into a sudden, fierce embrace, his arms wrapping around her with strength she had not expected. After a moment's shock, Mira hugged him back, burying her face against his shoulder. She was taller than him by a hand's breadth, broader and stronger, but in that moment she felt small and protected and precious. They stood there in the snow, holding each other while the winter wind blew around them. Finally, Marcus pulled back enough to look up at her face. "Those men will come back," he said quietly. "Probably with more hunters. We need to be ready. I should leave. If I am gone, they will have no reason to bother you. If you leave, they will hunt you down. At least here we can defend ourselves. I have weapons, I have supplies, and I have you." He managed a grim smile. "Orcs are supposed to be fierce warriors, right?" Despite everything, Mira felt her mouth quirk. "I can fight. Good. Then we prepare, together." Over the next 3 days, they turned the homestead into a fortress. Marcus retrieved his old military gear from storage. A good sword, a bow with a full quiver, and leather armor that still fit well despite the years since he had worn it. He taught Mira to use the bow, though she proved more comfortable with the short spear they fashioned from a broken shovel handle and a hunting knife. They reinforced the cabin door and windows, piling firewood and furniture to create barriers. Marcus showed her his escape plan, a loose board in the back wall that could be removed quickly, leading to a path through the forest he had memorized years ago. "If things go badly, you run," he instructed. "Head north to the old mill. It is abandoned but weathertight. Hide there and wait for me. I will not leave you to face them alone." "Mira, no," she crossed her arms. "We face this together or not at all. I am done running." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Together, then." On the 4th night they came. Mira was dozing by the fire when Copper's warning whinny brought her fully awake. Marcus was already on his feet, sword in hand, moving to the window. "8 riders," he said quietly. "Maybe more in the trees. They are surrounding us." Mira grabbed her spear and took position by the other window. Outside, torches flickered in the darkness as the hunters formed a loose circle around the cabin. The lead hunter from before dismounted and strode forward, stopping just outside the fence. "Marcus Donnelly," he called. "We are giving you one chance. Send out the orc and we leave you in peace. Refuse and we burn you out." Marcus opened the door a crack. "And I am telling you for the last time, leave my land. The orc stays. Then you burn with it." The hunter nodded to his men. Two of them produced oil flasks and rags, preparing torches. They were going to set fire to the cabin, and with the wooden structure and winter dry timber, it would go up like kindling. Mira felt cold fury settle over her. These men were going to kill them both out of nothing more than prejudice and the promise of bounty money. She had spent her life accepting that the world was cruel, that her people were hated, that she had no right to peace or happiness. But Marcus had shown her something different, and she would be damned to the hells before she let these animals take it from her. "I am going out," she said. "What?" "No, not to surrender, to fight." She met his eyes. "They will burn us out anyway, at least this way we have a chance. I draw their attention, you flank from the side, like we planned." They had war-gamed scenarios during their preparation, though neither had truly wanted to believe it would come to violence. But now that it had, training took over. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Be careful, please." She nodded, then kicked open the door and burst out into the night. The hunters clearly had not expected her to attack. They scrambled for weapons as Mira rushed the nearest two, her spear flashing. She caught one in the shoulder and sent him sprawling with a kick to the chest. The second swung a sword at her, but she ducked under the blade and slammed her shoulder into his gut, lifting him off his feet and hurling him into his companions. Chaos erupted. Mira fought with the focused intensity of someone who knew they were fighting for their life and had nothing left to lose. Her spear work was precise, using the weapon's reach to keep multiple attackers at bay. When one hunter got inside her guard, she dropped the spear and used her fists, her superior strength sending men reeling. From the corner of her eye, she saw Marcus engaging two hunters on the far side, his sword work efficient and deadly despite years of peace. He fought like a man who had not forgotten his training, each movement economical and precise. But there were too many hunters. For every one they dropped, two more pressed forward. Mira took a sword cut to her arm and barely felt it, too focused on survival. She saw Marcus take a blow to his head that staggered him, and her vision went red with rage. She charged through the hunters, separating them, ignoring the blades that nicked her sides, and reached Marcus just as a hunter prepared to run him through. She caught the blade on her spear shaft and twisted, disarming the man, then kicked him so hard he flew backward into the fence. "Behind you," Marcus gasped, and she spun to block another attack. They fought back to back now, covering each other's blind spots. Blood stained the snow beneath their feet, some of it theirs, most of it belonging to the hunters. But Mira could feel her strength flagging, her movements slowing. The wound on her arm was deeper than she had thought, and she was losing blood. The lead hunter, who had been hanging back directing his men, finally drew his sword and advanced. "Enough playing. Kill them both." The remaining hunters, 5 still on their feet, pressed forward in a coordinated attack. Mira knew they could not win this, but she would take as many of them with her as she could. Then, from the forest, came a sound that froze everyone in place. A deep, resonant war horn, the kind orc clans used to signal attack. It was followed by another, then another, echoing through the trees from multiple directions. The hunters looked around wildly, trying to determine where the attack would come from. But Mira knew those horns. Her heart leapt with hope and fear in equal measure, From the darkness emerged orcs. Not a raiding party, but a full war band, 20 warriors in battle dress, armed with axes and spears and expressions of cold fury. At their head was a massive orc woman Mira recognized immediately. Mara Stonefist, she breathed, her aunt, her mother's sister. The clan's war leader, and the one who had ultimately cast Mira out for her act of mercy. Mara's presence here made no sense unless she had been tracking Mira this entire time. Mara surveyed the scene with dark eyes, taking in the blood, the wounded hunters, Mira and Marcus standing together. Then she raised her axe and pointed it at the lead hunter. "You attack my blood," she said in heavily accented but clear human speech. "This is not acceptable." The lead hunter's face had gone pale. "Your blood, she is an exile, she has no clan." "I exiled her. I can unexile her. And I say now, she is under my protection. You have 10 breaths to leave before we collect your heads." The hunters did not need to be told twice. They grabbed their wounded and mounted their horses, fleeing into the night with considerably less bravado than they had arrived with. The orc warriors let them go, though Mira could see several looked disappointed at being denied a fight. When the hunters were gone, Mara approached. She stopped a few feet away and looked Mira up and down, taking in her wounds and exhaustion. "You are hurt," she stated. "I will live." Mara's gaze shifted to Marcus, who had raised his sword defensively despite being clearly outmatched. The war leader's expression was unreadable. "You are the human she protected, the one whose land she has been living on." "I am Marcus Donnelly." His voice was steady despite the sword he faced. "And Mira has been a guest, not a prisoner. She is free to leave whenever she chooses. Yet she chose to fight beside you, to bleed for you." Mara's tusks caught the torchlight as she spoke. "This is interesting." Mira stepped forward, placing herself partially between Marcus and her aunt. "Why are you here? Why save me now after casting me out?" Mara was silent for a long moment, then she lowered her axe. "Because I was wrong. The council debated for many days after you left. Some said you had grown weak, but others said you showed the truest form of strength, mercy without fear. When we heard hunters were tracking you, I brought my warriors to see if you still lived." She paused. "I did not expect to find you defending a human homestead. He gave me shelter when I had none, kindness when I expected cruelty. I will not abandon him. So I see." Mara studied them both with an expression Mira could not quite read. "Finally," she said, "the clan has voted. You may return if you wish. Your exile is lifted." The words Mira had dreamed of hearing for weeks now fell strangely flat. Return to the clan. Return to her old life of raids and fighting and the constant struggle for status. It was what she had thought she wanted. But when she glanced at Marcus, at this human who had shown her what kindness looked like, who had fought beside her and offered her something precious, a home, not just a place to survive, she realized the truth. "I am honored," she said slowly, "but I think I have found a new place. If it will have me." She looked at Marcus as she spoke those last words. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye and swaying slightly on his feet, but his expression when he met her gaze was full of such hope and joy that it stole her breath. "Always," he said simply. "For as long as you want." Mara made a noise that might have been approval or amusement. "So you choose exile again, but this time by your own will. For a human," she shook her head, "the world is changing in ways I do not fully understand, but I will respect your choice. You have earned that much." She signaled to her warriors, who began withdrawing toward the forest. Before she left, Mara turned back one last time. "If you have younglings, bring them to meet the clan when they are old enough. They should know their blood, and if this human ever harms you, send word. We will come." Then she was gone, melting into the shadows with her war band as silently as they had come. Mira and Marcus stood in the snow, surrounded by the evidence of battle, and slowly the reality of what had just happened sank in. Did your terrifying aunt just give us her blessing? Marcus asked, touching the cut on his forehead and wincing. I think she did. Mira felt slightly dazed, though she also threatened to kill you if you hurt me. That seems fair. He swayed again and Mira caught him, supporting his weight easily. We should probably do something about these wounds before we celebrate. They stumbled back into the cabin together, and Mira barred the door behind them. For the next hour, they tended each other's injuries in the firelight, cleaning and binding cuts, checking for serious damage. The wound on Mira's arm needed stitches, and Marcus performed them with steady hands despite his own injuries. I am sorry, she said as he worked. I brought this danger to your door. You brought life to my door. The danger would have found some other excuse eventually. Men like that always do. He tied off the last stitch. Besides, we survived, and apparently earned the approval of an orc war leader in the process, which I am told is not easy. Mira is hard to impress. The fact that she came at all means something. It means your clan cares about you, even if they have a strange way of showing it. He set aside the needle and thread. Are you certain about your choice? You could return to them, have a place among your people. Mira took his hands in hers, mindful of his injuries. I am certain. My people are warriors. They value strength above all else. But you taught me there are different kinds of strength. The strength to show mercy. The strength to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. The strength to stand against the world for someone you care about. She squeezed his hands gently. I choose you, Marcus, if you will have me. He looked up at her, this small, stubborn human who had risked everything for her, and his eyes were bright with emotion. I will have you for as long as you will stay, but Mira, you should know. The way I feel about you, it is not just about gratitude or companionship. He hesitated, then continued with quiet conviction. I love you. I think I have for weeks now, though I did not want to burden you with that when you were trying to decide about your future. But you should know. So you can make your choice with all the information. Mira felt tears spill down her cheeks. In her entire life, no one had ever said those words to her. Love had been a concept reserved for ballads and children's stories, something orcs spoke of rarely and humans even less. But hearing Marcus say it, seeing the vulnerability and hope in his face, she knew it was real. I love you too, she said, and watched his expression transform into pure joy. I did not know I could love someone until I met you. You showed me that I could be more than what I was raised to be. That there was goodness in the world if you knew where to look, and I found it here with you. Marcus stood, wincing at his bruises, and reached up to cup her face with his hands. May I kiss you? In answer, Mira leaned down and pressed her lips to his. It was gentle and tentative and perfect, a promise of all the things they would build together. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through their tears. We are going to scandalize the entire territory, Marcus said, resting his forehead against hers. Let them be scandalized. I am done caring what the world thinks. Good. So am I. They held each other in the firelight, battered and bleeding and happier than either had ever been. Outside, the winter wind continued its eternal song, but inside there was warmth and safety and love. The next weeks passed in a haze of healing and happiness. As their wounds mended, they settled into a new rhythm, one that acknowledged what they had become to each other. Mira moved from the barn into the cabin, into Marcus's bed, and woke each morning to find him beside her, real and solid in hers. They worked the homestead together, preparing for spring planting. They checked on Copper and Storm daily, watching the foal grow stronger and steadier. They talked long into the nights, sharing stories of their pasts and dreams for their future. I want to expand the farm, Marcus said one evening, sketching in the dirt by the fire. Add another field here, maybe get some sheep. We could build a larger barn. We will need a larger house too, Mira pointed out. This cabin is meant for one person, not two, and if we are going to have younglings. She trailed off, suddenly shy. Marcus looked up at her with such tenderness it made her heart ache. You want children. Someday, if you do. I do. He set aside his stick and moved to sit beside her. Though I admit I do not know what half-orc, half-human children will be like. Probably stubborn as orcs and idealistic as you, Mira said, smiling. They will be perfect. As winter slowly gave way to early spring, Mira and Marcus began work on expanding the cabin. They cut timber from the forest and hauled stone from the creek, laboring side by side to build their future. Mira's strength made the work easier, but Marcus's knowledge of construction kept them from making costly mistakes. One afternoon, as they were raising a new wall frame, Marcus paused to wipe sweat from his forehead. We should make it official, he said abruptly. Mira nearly dropped the beam she was holding. What? Our union. We should make it official. I know orc clans have their bonding ceremonies and humans have marriage. I do not care which we do, or if we do both, or if we make up our own tradition. But I want the world to know you are mine and I am yours. The world may not recognize such a union. Then the world can continue being wrong about things. What do you say, Mira? Will you marry me? Or bond with me? Or whatever we are calling it? Mira set down her beam and walked to him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Yes. However you want to do it, yes. They decided on a simple ceremony, one that borrowed from both their traditions. On the first day of true spring, when the snow had finally melted and green things pushed through the earth, they stood together in front of the cabin they had built and spoke vows to each other. There was no priest or shaman, no guests except Copper and Storm. Mira wore a simple dress she had sewn herself, and Marcus wore his best shirt. They exchanged tokens. Mira gave Marcus a carved wooden medallion bearing her clan's mark, and Marcus gave her a ring he had forged himself from iron and silver, sized to fit her larger fingers. I vow to stand beside you in joy and hardship, Marcus said, slipping the ring onto her finger. To share my home and my heart with you for all my days, to be your partner, your friend, and your love. I vow to protect you with my strength and cherish you with my heart, Mira responded, placing the medallion around his neck. To build a life with you that honors both our peoples, to be your partner, your friend, and your love. They sealed the vows with a kiss as the spring sun shone down on them. When they pulled apart, Mira felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness and belonging she had never experienced before. This human, this place, this life, they were hers now and she was theirs. As spring turned to summer, word of the odd couple in the northern homestead began to spread. Some travelers who passed by reacted with hostility or fear, but they quickly learned that Marcus Donnelly was not a man to be intimidated, and his orc wife was formidable in her own right. Others were merely curious, having never seen a human-orc partnership before. One such traveler was a young human woman named Lily, barely 18, who appeared at their door one morning looking exhausted and frightened. She bore bruises on her face and arms and flinched when Marcus first spoke to her. "Please," she said. "I heard there was an orc woman here who once showed mercy to a human child. I thought maybe." Mira understood immediately. She had been that child once, in a different way, cast out and desperate. She ushered the girl inside and fed her while listening to her story. Lily had fled an arranged marriage to a cruel man in a village 2 days' ride south. She had nowhere to go and no one who would help her. "You can stay here," Mira said firmly, glancing at Marcus for confirmation. He nodded immediately. Until you decide what you want to do, we have room, and an extra pair of hands is always welcome on a farm. Lily stayed for 2 months, helping with the planting and the animals. She watched Mira and Marcus together with wonder, seeing proof that different peoples could not only coexist, but love each other. When she finally left, it was with supplies, coin, and directions to a settlement where she had an aunt who might take her in. "Thank you," she said, hugging Mira tightly, "for showing me that there is kindness in the world. I will not forget." After she left, Marcus wrapped his arms around Mira from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "We are going to end up with a reputation for harboring strays." "Is that a problem?" "Not even a little bit." He kissed her neck. "I am proud of you, of us, of what we are building here." More people came over the following year. A young orc man cast out for refusing to raid human settlements. An elderly human couple whose farm had failed and who had nowhere else to go. 2 half-orc children whose parents had died, leaving them with no place in either human or orc society. Each time, Mira and Marcus took them in. They expanded the homestead to accommodate, building additional cabins and clearing more land. What had started as one man's solitary farm slowly became a small community, a place where those who did not fit in the wider world could find acceptance and peace. Mira's Aunt Mara visited occasionally, bringing news of the clan and gifts for the growing settlement. She never stayed long, but her visits served an important purpose. They showed that at least one orc clan accepted what Mira and Marcus had built, and that went a long way toward keeping other, more hostile orcs at bay. On one such visit, Mara pulled Mira aside while Marcus was showing the half-orc children how to fish in the creek. "You have built something remarkable here," Mara said, watching the scene with thoughtful eyes. "A place where both peoples can live without fear or hatred." "We are trying," Mira replied. "It is not always easy. Some who come cannot let go of their old prejudices, but most learn given time. The clan speaks of this place now. Some call it foolishness, others call it hope." Mara turned to face her niece. "I confess I did not understand your choice at first, but seeing this, seeing what you and your human have created, I begin to think you were wiser than any of us." Coming from Mara, it was high praise indeed. Mira felt tears prick her eyes. "That means more than you know. He makes you happy." "Happier than I ever thought possible," Mara nodded slowly. "Then I am glad I was wrong about humans, or at least wrong about that one." She gripped Mira's shoulder, the orc gesture of respect and affection. "Live well, niece. Raise strong younglings. Show the world what is possible." 2 years after that first desperate night when Mira had tried to steal a coat, she stood in front of the main cabin, now expanded and comfortable, and surveyed all they had built. The homestead was thriving. Their small community numbered 15 souls now, a mix of humans, orcs, and half-breeds. The fields were green with crops, the pastures dotted with sheep and cattle, and children's laughter echoed through the settlement. Marcus came up behind her, now a familiar and beloved presence. He wrapped his arms around her waist, and she leaned back against him, marveling as always at how perfectly they fit together despite their differences. "Thinking deep thoughts?" he asked. "Thinking about that night, when I tried to steal your coat. Best theft I ever experienced." She could hear the smile in his voice. "I got a wife, a family, and a purpose out of it. You got stuck with a stubborn farmer who thinks he can change the world." "We got stuck with each other," Mira corrected, turning in his arms to face him. "And we did change the world. Our little piece of it, anyway." "Our little piece of it," he agreed. He cupped her face with one calloused hand. "I love you, Mira Donnelly." She still thrilled at hearing her married name, at the way he said it with such pride and affection. "I love you too, Marcus Donnelly." They kissed, unhurried and sweet, while around them the community they had built went about its daily business. In the distance, Mira could see Copper grazing with Storm, now grown into a fine young stallion. She could hear the half-orc children arguing over whose turn it was to feed the chickens. She could smell dinner cooking in the communal kitchen they had built last summer. This was her life now. Not the life she had been born to, or the one she had imagined during her exile. This was better, a life built on love and acceptance, on hard work and hope. A life where orc and human could stand side by side, not as enemies but as partners, as family. That evening, as they gathered for dinner with their extended household, Mira made an announcement. She waited until everyone was seated and served before standing, Marcus's hand clasped in hers. "We have news," she said, feeling both nervous and excited. "In the spring, there will be a new addition to our family, a child." The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. The children jumped up and down with excitement. The adults came forward to embrace them, and through it all Marcus beamed with such pure joy that Mira fell in love with him all over again. Later, when everyone had settled and the celebration had quieted, they sat together by the fire. Marcus placed his hand on Mira's stomach where their child was growing, still too small to show but real and precious nonetheless. Boy or girl, he wondered aloud, does it matter? Not even a little bit, as long as they are healthy and happy. "They will be both," Mira said with certainty. "We will make sure of it. They will grow up knowing they are loved, that they belong, that the world is big enough for all kinds of people if we are brave enough to make space." "We will teach them everything," Marcus agreed. "How to farm and fight, how to show mercy and strength. How to build bridges instead of walls. How to steal coats from stubborn farmers," Marcus laughed. "Especially that. It is clearly a valuable life skill." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance and listening to the sounds of their household settling for the night. Mira thought about that desperate, frozen girl she had been, so certain that the world had no place for her, no kindness to offer. She thought about the coat that had started everything, still hanging on its peg by the door, patched and worn but treasured. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me. For seeing past what I was supposed to be to who I actually am. For giving me your coat and your home and your heart." Marcus lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Thank you for stealing my coat, for staying when you could have run. For teaching me that love is not limited by species or tradition, only by the size of our courage. We were brave, were we not? We were, we are, and we will continue to be." He placed his other hand over hers on her stomach. "For this little one and for everyone who comes to us seeking shelter. We will be brave enough to say the world is wrong, and to show them what is right." Mira leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their eternal dance. Inside, the fire burned warm and bright, a beacon against the darkness. She had found her home. Not in a place, though this homestead was dear to her. Not in acceptance from the wider world, which might never fully come. She had found home in this human who had seen her shivering in the cold and offered warmth without question. In the family, they had built together from cast-offs and outcasts. In the love that had grown between them, impossible and perfect and absolutely real. The child was born in early spring, a daughter with green-tinged skin and Marcus's gray eyes and lungs that could wake the entire settlement with her wails. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented. Hope that the future could be different from the past, that love could overcome hatred, that two peoples divided by history could find unity in the next generation. Mara came to see her grandniece, bearing gifts of finely wrought weapons that the baby would not be able to use for years, but which signified the clan's acceptance. She held little hope with surprising gentleness, studying the infant's mixed features with satisfaction. "She will be strong," Mira pronounced. "Strong like her mother, wise like her father. She will need both in the years to come." "The years will be kinder to her than they were to us," Mira said firmly. "We will make sure of that. You are already making sure of it. This place you have built, this community, it is the first step toward a better world. Others will follow your example, given time." "Do you really think so?" Mira handed the baby back to her. "I have seen many things in my years as war leader. I have seen humans and orcs commit terrible atrocities against each other. I have seen hatred passed from parent to child like a bitter inheritance. But I have also seen this," she gestured around the settlement, "proof that it does not have to be that way. If two people as different as you and your human can build a life together, then perhaps others can as well. Perhaps peace is not just a dream for fools." It was perhaps the most hopeful thing Mira had ever heard her pragmatic aunt say. She blinked back tears as Mara took her leave, rejoining her warriors for the journey back to clan lands. Hope grew quickly, healthy and strong and curious about everything. By her second summer, she was walking and getting into everything, and Mira and Marcus took turns chasing after her while trying to manage the farm and their growing community. It was exhausting and wonderful and exactly the life they had both dreamed of. On Hope's third birthday, they held a celebration that drew people from miles around. Humans and orcs who had heard of the settlement came to see the miracle child, the living proof that their peoples could unite. Some came with skepticism, others with hope, but all left having seen something they had never witnessed before: genuine harmony between species. That night, after the guests had departed and Hope was finally asleep, Mira and Marcus sat on their porch watching the stars. They were older now, marked by years of hard work and sun exposure, but happy in ways that youth alone could never have achieved. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Choosing this life, you could have returned to your clan, been a warrior again." "Never," Mira said without hesitation. "This life, this family, you are everything I never knew I needed. I would choose you 1,000 times over in every possible world. Good, because you are stuck with me now." He took her hand. "We have built something beautiful here, Mira, not just in our family, but in this whole community. People who had nowhere else to go have found a home. Children who would have been cast out are thriving. And it all started because I caught you stealing my coat." "Because you gave me your coat," she corrected. "You saw someone in need and helped, even though every part of your world told you not to. You changed everything with that one act of kindness." "We changed everything," he insisted. "Together. That is how this has always worked. Not me saving you, or you saving me, but both of us choosing to build something new together." "Together," Mira agreed, squeezing his hand. "Always together." They sat in peaceful silence, watching the stars and listening to the sounds of the settlement settling down for the night. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Closer by, one of the sheep bleated softly. And inside their home, their daughter slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams 3-year-olds dream. Years continued to pass, marked by changing seasons and growing children. Hope gained siblings, a brother named Dawn, and another sister named Grace. The settlement expanded until it could properly be called a village, with its own market, school, and council. Marcus served on that council alongside Mira, and together they helped establish laws that protected everyone regardless of their heritage. Not everyone who came to visit was friendly. There were still those who believed orcs and humans should not mix, who called them abominations and threatened violence. But each time such people appeared, the community stood together to defend their home, and eventually the hostile visitors learned to stay away. On their 10th anniversary, Marcus surprised Mira by presenting her with a beautiful cloak. It was made of the finest wool, dyed a deep green that matched her skin, and lined with soft fur. "What is this?" she asked, running her hands over the luxurious fabric. "I owed you a coat," Marcus said, grinning. "I figured after 10 years I should probably upgrade from that old thing you stole." Mira laughed, pulling him into a kiss. "I loved that old coat, but I love this one too, and I love you, you ridiculous, wonderful human. I love you too, you brave, beautiful orc." They held each other close, wrapped in the new cloak together, and Mira marveled at how far they had come. From that desperate, frozen night to this a life full of love and family and purpose. It had not been easy. There had been struggles and setbacks, moments when the world's hatred had threatened to crush them. But they had endured together and built something that would last long after they were gone. Their children grew and eventually had children of their own. Hope married a human man who had come to the settlement as a refugee and stayed for love. Dawn bonded with an orc woman from Mara's clan, further strengthening ties between the community and the orcs. Grace became a healer, using knowledge from both traditions to help anyone who needed it. Marcus and Mira grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies marked by age and labor. But their love never diminished. Every morning, Mira woke to find Marcus beside her and felt grateful all over again for that night he had caught her stealing his coat. Every evening, Marcus watched Mira move about their home and thanked whatever gods were listening that she had chosen to stay. On a spring morning much like the one where they had spoken their vows, when Mira was 60 winters old and Marcus 62, they sat together on the porch they had built so many years before. Their grandchildren played in the yard, a riotous mix of green and pink skin tones, all of them healthy and happy and completely unaware of how impossible their existence would have seemed just decades earlier. "We did it," Marcus said softly, watching the children. "We actually did it." "We did," Mira agreed. "We changed the world, our little piece of it anyway. Our little piece is growing. I heard there are 3 other mixed settlements now, established by people who visited here and were inspired. And Mara tells me the clan council is formally recognizing human-orc unions. The world is changing, Mira, slowly but truly. Because we were brave enough to take that first step, because you gave a freezing orc your coat." Marcus took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "Best decision I ever made." "Best theft I ever attempted," Mira countered, and they both laughed. They sat together in the spring sunshine, surrounded by the impossible family they had created, in the community they had built from nothing but courage and love. And if sometimes Mira's eyes drifted to the old coat, still hanging carefully preserved in their bedroom, the coat that had started everything well, she thought she could be forgiven for that. It was, after all, the most precious thing she had ever stolen. Years later, when both had passed peacefully into death, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the village erected a monument in their honor. It stood in the central square, a carved stone showing a human man and an orc woman standing hand in hand. At its base was inscribed a simple message. "They taught us that kindness knows no boundaries, and love recognizes no barriers. May we honor their memory by continuing to build bridges where others see only walls." And on the coldest nights, when travelers passed through seeking shelter, the villagers would take them in and tell them the story. The story of how their community began with a simple act of compassion, an orc girl trying to steal a coat and a human man who said, "Keep it. You need it more than me." They would tell how that small kindness had grown into something beautiful and lasting, proof that the world could change if people were brave enough to show each other mercy. The story spread far beyond that small village, carried by travelers and traders, passed from parent to child, until it became legend. And in the centuries that followed, when humans and orcs finally learned to live in lasting peace, historians would look back and trace it all to that one frozen night, when two impossible people found each other and chose love over fear, compassion over hatred, hope over despair. All because of a coat, and the courage to see past what should be to what could be. All because Marcus Donnelly looked at a desperate, shivering orc and saw not a monster, but a person in need. All because Mira was brave enough to accept kindness when it was offered, and to stay when running would have been easier. Together, they had changed everything. And their love, impossible, scandalous, beautiful, had been the seed from which a new and better world had grown.